Hello and welcome to another What's the Point? My name is Josh Durrell. I'm the CEO of the Wyoming Business Council, and this is a podcast about economic development and business in Wyoming. And today I am joined by Representative Daniel Singh in Cheyenne. So tell me a little bit about you, Daniel.
Hi, Josh, and thank you for having me. I represent House District 61 right here in Cheyenne. I serve on the Education and the Judiciary Committees, as well as I chair the Blockchain, Financial Technology, and Digital Innovation Technology Select Committee here in Wyoming. And so it's an honor to serve, and we're heading into the budget session, which is going to be a rapid 20-day session where we talk about everything under the sun, the complete funding of the state of Wyoming for the next 2 years. And I'm very interested in learning more about what the Business Council does and really examining the type of relationship that the people have with the council going forward.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's great. And I think that approach of saying, hey, I want to learn more about what's going on and how does this matter to the people of Wyoming, I think that's the right lens to look at this through. But maybe, if you don't mind, maybe we just take a step back or two, a little bit and figure out who you are. So tell me a little bit more about you. You know, what's your Wyoming story? How did you decide to start serving the state as a representative? Tell me all about that.
Sure. I'm in my second term right now. I first ran for office in 2022 when I was 25 years old.
Wow.
My dad's an immigrant, so I come from a first-generation American household. My dad's an immigrant from Trinidad and Tobago, and my family is from Wyoming, and so my parents, they moved to a small town called LaGrange, Wyoming in Goshen County. It's actually where the first champion of Cheyenne Frontier Days is from.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, fun fact. But they were serving with the Frontier School of the Bible up there. And eventually we moved to Cheyenne, and I graduated from East High School. I attended Casper College and LCCC before eventually going to Calvary Chapel Bible College. I had the opportunity to study abroad in York, England, and then I got my degree in biblical studies over at the Marietta campus. Okay. And then I came back here to Cheyenne, and for the longest time I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. And I was working at the Starbucks on Del Range here in town. I ended up being a shift lead, and I saw the opportunity to run for office. I've always been passionate about my community, and with my experience internationally, I'm so grateful for the things that make America great, our freedoms that we have, the economic opportunity that we have here. It's unlike anything else in the world. And so I figured, now's my shot. Now's the opportunity to take my shot, and I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't throw my hat in the ring. So I did that, and I was in a three-way race. I walked away just shy of 50%. I think I'll regret that for the rest of my life. I didn't. If I'd knocked on a couple more doors, I could have made that 50%. But I was reelected in 2024, earning the trust of my community, and I love working on big ideas. And so the legislature has trusted me with the responsibility of tackling tech-related issues, and really it's a new frontier. And so I work on ideas that a lot of folks just haven't talked about before, and it's a great opportunity to reach across the aisle and see where we do agree when it comes to technology. And I've had a great relationship with Senator Rothfuss, who co-chairs the committee, and I've gotten the opportunity to learn from folks all across the political aisle and really all across the country and the world. Wyoming leads the way in a lot of different ways when it comes to technology, whether it's blockchain technology, the next generation of banking. People look to Wyoming and the work of folks like Cynthia Lummis to see what type of future we want to chart for ourselves. And so it's been an honor to serve the people of Wyoming, and I'm looking forward to present some pretty big ideas this upcoming session.
Cool. Well, we're going to get to those big ideas. I want to dive in a little bit though. So you're 25 years old before you ran, right? 24, 25 years old. Tell me about that decision-making process, and then, did you feel like you were equipped? Did you feel like you were just ready to jump in? Like, tell me more about that. I want to know like that decision-making process. That's cool.
Sure. Well, for any young person that's thinking about running for office, if you want to decide whether or not you're ready, it's not something that comes to you, right? It's not a status. The ready is not a status, but a decision.
Yeah.
And so if you decide that you're ready, then it's up to you to go out there and actually step into the ring.
Yeah.
One of my favorite speeches ever is "The Man in the Arena" by Teddy Roosevelt.
Love that.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's not the critic who counts, but it's the one who's actually in the ring.
Yep.
And if you want to make that difference, I'm not going to judge somebody based off of their political views. Your political views should match those of your constituents, right? It's your responsibility to represent the people, right? Yeah. And sometimes you'll have to examine your beliefs and make sure that you are accurately representing the people. But if you want to step into that arena, then it's up to you to actually put yourself there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is a good message for all young people, not just about the stepping into a political arena, but being an entrepreneur or taking a job or a course of study or kind of moving into your future. You should step into it. You shouldn't just fall into it. You shouldn't be placed into it. You should decide to do that. I think that's when you were talking about the man in the arena, I got goosebumps a little bit. And it's like that idea that you are choosing that and you are willing to put yourself into that is I think that's a great thing for people to recognize. That's good. Okay, so based on my math, and it's not perfect, you're either right around 30 or you're just shy of it. So tell me about which I love, right? Because what you are representing is a group of young people in our state and obviously your constituents, but you have a handle on technology that maybe old people like me don't fully understand. And so when you had the opportunity to be part of the select committee, what was that like?
Well, I'm approaching 30, very, very quickly approaching 30, and it's something that keeps me up at night.
Ooh, yeah, it's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, if you talk to other folks in Gen Z, they might refer to me as Unk, actually.
Oh, you're Unk status
I'm
now?
Unk status, yeah.
Whoa,
I remember back in my day, I remember when Minecraft first came out, so it's come a long ways. But the opportunity to be a part of the select committee, that was when I first went into the legislature as part of the 67th legislature. I was appointed by the Speaker of the House, Albert Summers, and so he really wanted to get the younger tech-focused people all in the same room, and so I was part of that committee with Cyrus Western, Ocean Andrew, and Mike Yin, and it was a really fun group. We had a good time, and it was there that I really learned to just soak it all in. There's a lot of different topics that we tackle in that committee, everything from artificial intelligence to cryptocurrency, and a little bit of statute touches really everywhere.
Right.
And so we were all the bills have to go through the Minerals Committee, but we are dealing with business broadly and the future of everything from the financial system to the election code, and it's a big responsibility. Really, anything that has to do with computers goes through that committee, and I got to learn a lot about the different challenges the state is facing when it comes to technology.
Yeah. So we've had, as you mentioned early on, we've had a lot of play around technology and being sort of trailblazers in different ways around business or technology. And so tell me a little bit about ways that you've seen in the last 4 years of us continuing to be trailblazers, and then maybe give us a little sneak peek about what you're thinking about for these big moves in the session.
Sure. Well, just a couple of things. So the state of Wyoming is the first state in the country to come out with a stable token. We have the Wyoming stable token, the Frontier token that we have, and it's a first of its kind. What makes it different from other stable tokens is that it has the gravity of state backing, whereas other entities, they may come out with their own stable token, but they don't have the same amount of trust as an actual sovereign state.
Right.
And so it's just launched. It actually launched on my birthday this year, which was its own gift, if you will.
Yeah.
But in that time, it's already yielding. People are buying into it, and it really serves as an opportunity to offset the challenges created by credit cards and the international transfer system that we have. So I just came back from a trip to Belize, and whenever I wanted to use my card, there was an additional fee imposed by the credit card companies to be able to make a purchase with that card.
Right.
When in reality, I was trading with the same amount of capital. That was just a slice off the top that the card took from me. And I was just buying some hot sauce. But to think of the application for regular people when it comes to international transfers, if you're traveling, to be able to avoid an additional fee when it comes to transferring the type of currency that you hold, that is significant, especially if you're a business player. And that same problem applies to interagency transfers as well. So if there is or intergovernment transfers as well. So if there's a county government or a municipal government that is trying to conduct business within itself, those additional fees that would be imposed on them by private actors, which, the private actors are just making money. Okay, that's the end goal of business, is to make some money, right? And I don't disagree with that. But as representatives of the people, currency is a tool to help the people prosper. And so this presents itself as an opportunity to be more efficient, to save the people money, whether it's as an individual or it could be that government entity. And we're seeing the opportunity for other governments to use the technology that we've created to make things more efficient within themselves. And by doing that, let's say another country decides to implement the Wyoming stable token as a means to make their system more efficient. Well, if they do that, they're investing in Wyoming. And all the returns from that investment go into our school foundation account, benefiting Wyoming education. And so I think this is a great opportunity for us to be able to think outside of the box and fund the things that are the most important to us. And maybe we'll end up using that revenue to cover additional costs someday. But in the meantime, I think we should give it a shot.
Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting, because you kind of had some blue sky there to work with, right? Because there was nothing there. And so what I want to know, and this is maybe good for the viewers, how do you, as a legislator, how do you really kind of dig into a problem and then come up with legislation that makes sense? Can you walk us through that process? Because I think a lot of times people think, oh, I saw this in a committee meeting, but they don't really understand what goes on behind the scenes, and they don't understand the work that goes into developing statutes that work. So could you walk me through that committee and how you all work together and how it all came out?
Sure.
I think I'm curious, and I'm sure our viewers are too.
Well, especially as a young person, I realize I don't know everything, actually. I think you go from, when you turn 18, you know everything, and then it's very slowly revealed to you that you actually don't know everything.
I think Mark Twain has a really nice quote there.
When I was first elected, a lot of people told me that I would be drinking from a fire hose, and that is pretty accurate, actually. Everything under the sun, from agriculture to banking to county decision making to technology. You need to have a little bit of knowledge in each of those things. I visited the Capitol, the Washington, D.C. for the first time when I was elected, and the first place that I went to go and do some personal sightseeing was the Library of Congress. And when you walk into the Library of Congress, there's part of the decoration is a painting on the wall that goes through the different topics that Congress is assigned to look after. And so each of those different things, it's really our responsibility for the people that you trust to make those decisions, that they need to gain an understanding of all those things. And the reality is that anybody that's elected doesn't know everything about those things. And if you have an issue that your representative or whoever represents you in either the House or the Senate or whatever, if you know something that you think they ought to know, you reach out to them. And it's their responsibility to learn from you. My first bill that I passed, it came out of the blue. It came out from a constituent who put this on my radar as a good idea. It was decriminalizing vehicle idling. in the state of Wyoming. It was illegal to leave your vehicle idling on the side of a road because, well, and I'm assuming it was implemented as a safety measure, and that was first written in statute in the 50s, right? And since the 50s, new technology has come out for you to be able to remote start your vehicle, right? And so many of our statutes in the state of Wyoming are tied to laws that were passed earlier in the last century.
They were set up to solve a problem that may not exist anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or there may be a technological loophole around that to solve that you wouldn't need to legislate.
Right.
And so my first bill that I passed was to decriminalize that. Yep. And just from there, seeing the opportunities to use technology to solve problems instead of using the law to punish people has been a highlight of my career.
Cool. That's super cool. Yeah. I didn't even know that was a law. I bet a lot of people didn't. Right? There are a lot of those, I bet, that people don't know about. So within that committee, you mentioned that committee has a lot of people who are pretty intimately involved with technology. I would say if you think about the legislature and who's really kind of geeked up about technology, the folks you mentioned are those folks. But it's a pretty diverse group of people, right? You got some Democrats from Jackson and Laramie, and you got some other folks who maybe aren't. How did all that go?
Just talking to people, or
yeah,
just working together?
Like working together on policies that might work for technology, and even though maybe people are coming at it from different perspectives.
Well, I think it's presented me with a very unique opportunity to build relationships that otherwise people wouldn't go the distance to go and make. Yep. Because technology is on the frontier, I have to deeply think about the problems themselves and the ethics and the historical basis of those problems. We deal with everything from what does it mean to be a person? What is, in the age of artificial intelligence, what does it mean to be conscious? All right, that's a tough question that you have to wrestle with.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be private? What is an individual? Yeah. It sounds esoteric, it sounds ethereal, but these are the issues that we need to tackle in order to protect the rights that we have, that we hold so dear for the next generation.
Right.
Because the technology that we're developing today will be widely used by the generation tomorrow. And so I think everyone recognizes that responsibility, and we spend a lot less time yelling at each other, calling each other names in that committee, and instead we tackle real problems and real ideas, and we have to actually listen to each other, because you never know when somebody might have a good point. And just broadly speaking, I would say that some of the most sound wisdom has come from across the aisle. I love listening to, and though I don't always agree with, I love listening to people like Mike Yin or Chris Rothfuss, because I know and I trust that they deeply think about the issues that they're talking about. And we may not arrive at the same conclusion, but I trust that they've deeply thought about it.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a good message for folks too. I think not just in politics, but again, I think in business, it's important for us to understand our customers and listen to where they're coming from, and understand the stakeholders and try to figure that out. And that can be harder and harder to do the more you sort of like fall in love with an idea, or the more that you work on something. You think, oh, I know enough, and that can be challenging. So it's good to hear. It's really good to hear. So all right, so we're talking about technology, but let's shift just a little bit to more the business side, because that's a big focus of that committee as well, right? So tell me a little bit about what you see coming down the road and how that's going to impact business and what that means for the state with some of the new things that you're looking at as a committee.
Sure. Well, I mean, one of the biggest issues that we're facing has to do with things surrounding data centers, the distribution of electricity, intellectual property rights. All of those things are coming down the pike, and we're going to be tackling each of those issues in this upcoming session, as well as the interim. And I'm hoping that this upcoming interim year that we'll be able to take it on as a topic, specifically addressing how the state relates to data centers, because I see both sides of it. I see the obvious problem. If you're in a residential area and you can hear a data center buzzing from miles away with bright lights shooting up into the sky all the time, ruining your view, you move to a rural area specifically to escape that kind of a thing. and then all of a sudden a giant data center from a multi-billion-dollar company decides that they're going to set up shop and be your neighbor without being good neighbors. That's a problem. And one of the other issues that, so data centers come with a plethora of issues. A lot of people are concerned about electricity usage and water usage. And to a lesser degree, but I'm really concerned about this, how does this affect the night sky, your ability to just see the stars at night, or the local wildlife? And all these things I think are being addressed, and as new technology comes out, those issues are mitigated, but that doesn't degrade the seriousness of those issues. At the same time, these are folks that come to Wyoming specifically because of the business environment that we have, because of the tremendous resources that we have, that God gave us this access to energy, whether it's coal, oil, natural gas, eventually nuclear. My personal favorite is geothermal, and we don't get to talk about that very much. But those are perks that Wyoming has specifically advertised as the selling points, right? And so to balk at industry when it comes our way for the things that we've told them that we celebrate, I don't think that's a good idea either. And so there's a balance, and I want to work towards finding a solution to find that balance. And I think the opportunities that come our way, we ought to take advantage of them to create that opportunity for the next generation.
I'm glad you brought this one up, because I think this is a challenge that we all have when you work in an industry, and whether that be politics or whether that be like business. We'll tackle one. You have a bunch of constituents out there. They remember what it was like, 10 years ago with water usage in a data center, and then technology has changed, and maybe it's a lot less than we thought, right? Or people think, oh, the rates go up because this data center is coming, my electric rates are going to go up, and it's like, no, those are separate. How do you, and this is a hard thing for us to do, is to re-communicate the new things that are happening. How do you take the voice of your constituents in, and at the same time be the voice back to them of, I hear your concerns, here's the facts, or here's what I'm going to do about it, or here's reality, and how do you do that? Because it's a lot, right? That's a tough thing to do.
Well, first and foremost, I want to say that the law should be understandable. And somebody looking at a policy, the average citizen should be able to look at a policy, to look at statute, and have some sort of understanding as to what we're talking about. And I would not, even though we deal with big ideas, they shouldn't be so complicated that the average person is left behind. And I wouldn't want to inadvertently create a system that's elitist, right? That wouldn't be right. But we do deal with complicated topics. And so when
it's a balance, right?
Yeah, it's a balance. And the issues that we talk about, a lot of the problems that we face, especially water, there are solutions out there that through technology we can actually solve. And one of the biggest solutions out there, it's not going to be able to come from me in the Wyoming State Legislature. It will take an act of Congress. But we have in our hands, we have the technology to desalinate water and to bring that into the arid regions of the United States. And through an act of Congress, we could build that infrastructure to replenish the areas that are actually facing drought, and solve these problems that so many people are concerned about. Instead of perpetuating a crisis, we can solve the problems, and technology is a part of that. And I don't really believe in dwelling in doom and gloom, right? There are problems, but my job is to work to solve those problems. And so whether it's the water usage, whether it's electricity, right? And when it comes to the data centers, I think that those entities should be able to generate electricity without hooking up to the public utility, because that creates a vulnerability for everybody else. And if they're able to generate their own power behind the scenes, that would be, in my opinion, a good idea. But then we run up against existing agreements that the state of Wyoming perpetuates. It could be that if there's a monopoly to electricity generation, then maybe it's the job of the legislature to assess that and see if that's really matching up with what we claim to believe.
Yeah, I think your approach to, and this tends to be the way that technology, the problem is approached, is that technology is created to solve a problem. Mm-hmm. It's not just created for fun generally. There are lots of things that are, but they don't really see the light of day, or they're not commercially successful. But when you focus on the problem, then whatever technology you use to solve it can solve it. And I think the same kind of thing is for policy, right? We look at our job as, how do we create the right policies and the right investment mechanisms to create a good business landscape, okay? The whole point is make our community strong, which is one of the reasons that you got into politics, it sounds like, is that you wanted to serve your community, and then make sure that families could stick around. And so whether it's policy as a tool, we have to remember that can't be static for 50 years and for us to expect that it will then work forever, right? Mm-hmm. Like, the policies that we have may not be working, right? And so tell me a little bit about, how do you take your approach, which is really looking at the problem and saying, is this a problem anymore? Should we change what we've got? And how does that work within the legislature or the community as a whole? Is that hard to do? Was your first bill hard to get passed, even though it seems like a no-brainer?
My first bill was not that difficult to get across the finish line.
Yep.
And part of that was because I was green, right? And I didn't have a significant history with the relationships that I was building at that time. But if you want to be successful in any walk of life, the people that you work with, that you will end up depending upon for their input in order to succeed, it works a lot better if you don't go and bash them all the time in order to solve a problem. Yep. And you never know, in my line of work, you never know when someone who you vehemently disagree with is, in the next argument, just a couple minutes later, going to be your strongest ally. Yeah. And so how we conduct ourselves, how we treat our neighbors, even if we disagree, it may feel good in the short term to lash out and to be vindictive towards someone that you disagree with, but in the long term, choosing to be vindictive to the people that you disagree with can limit the opportunities that you have. For example, I have my fair share of disagreements with our municipal government here in Cheyenne. That being said, these are my public servants, and I know that they are dedicated to serving the community, even if we disagree. And they may pursue policies that I disagree with, but that doesn't mean that I think that they're somehow evil people or something like that. Yeah. All of the different layers work together in order to make the community better. Yeah. And when we are entrusted, everyone that took an oath to serve the people of Wyoming, just to honor the Constitution, when we took that oath, I believe everyone who did that took it seriously. Yeah. And so it's my responsibility as a representative to carry the business of the people that I represent and to work together with the people who were chosen by their communities to represent them to find a solution.
Yeah. Well, and I've always found that with you, is that you're willing to listen and try to understand an issue rather than go at it from a perspective of ignorance. So I really appreciate that from you, is understanding what we do and better understanding it. And even if you have a surface understanding of it, you're not going to use that as your final say. You're going to try to understand it before getting to like policies that could negatively or positively affect us, right? And I think that's a strong mark for a legislator in my book, is somebody who's willing to dig in and understand it. And I appreciate that from you.
Thank you.
As you move into the session, then what do you see happening? Obviously, the budget is something that's going to go on, but I think you said something that is also really key for all of us to remember. That let's go into this with like an optimistic and a growth view. Like, what can we come out of this with, and what does that mean for the future? And I think that when I think about somebody in a republic, which we are, you've got to represent your people. And you've clearly said and shown that you've done that. You've got to have a view for the future, because it's not just about today. And you've also got to make sure that you maintain and you protect the Constitution. So all of those things, and then the idea of a republic is, even though we live in one, is foreign to a lot of people. I think people think you're just a representative of the people, and it's like they forget that those other two things are important, and that's that future view and that protection of the Constitution. So let's talk about the future view, because you could tell you're pretty optimistic and you have a view of the future that could be interesting. So let's talk about that.
Sure. Well, I mean, as far as the future goes, it is entirely dependent on our ability to work together. And I mean, we may, as situations change, we may pursue different policies, but what type of leadership would we like to enable in the future? So many people are scared about the way that we talk about politics, like it's us versus them,
right.
That we have a knife to each other's throats. But in reality, if you actually go and get off your keyboard and go and talk to your neighbor, you'd find that you have a whole lot more in common than you do apart. And I'm so passionate about that. My background is missions, and just being able to go and talk to people who may disagree with me, even if we're not talking about the gospel. If we're talking about something else, if we're talking about real life, everybody suffers. Yeah. Everybody has a family. Yeah. Everybody cares about something and has people that care about them. We need to navigate that with that mutual understanding that we're not enemies. We're fellow citizens. Right. And I mean, I'm looking forward. I'm attending a Democratic town hall tonight. And in some ways, I'm a little anxious about it. I feel like Daniel in the lion's den. But at the same time, these are my neighbors. Yeah. And it would be wrong for me to say that I want to be a leader without even considering the opposition view. Yeah. And I love coalition building. Finding those wacky coalitions that nobody thought were coming. Yep. If I'm able to bring people together, you bring somebody from like the furthest right person and the furthest left person, you'll find that they actually do agree on some things. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to bring some bills that bring everybody together.
Nice. Well, I share your optimism, and here's the way I kind of have looked at it. A lot of times people look at it as you mentioned, like a sort of like we're at odds. And the way I kind of look at it is we're all on the same team, but we just have different roles. And so thinking about football, for example, right? There's an offense and there's a defense and special teams, and all of them play their roles. But if they don't play their roles together and they don't do their jobs, then the team loses. And I think a lot of times we think of, and this happens a lot with the executive branch and the legislative branch, there's always this tension, but the bottom line is we're actually on the same team. Mm-hmm. And I think that we all have different roles, and when we play them and when we realize that we're on the same team, we can play them better. I think that's where the magic happens, right? And so I applaud you for seeking out other points of view and other ways of doing things and being able to bring that in. Your work in missions is probably what has allowed you to do that, and that's really cool.
I'd like to say so. Absolutely. One of And I, believe it or not, I have some free time actually sometimes. And something that I do in my free time is I'm a member of the Cheyenne Chamber Singers. I've been a member since before I was elected, and I'm a tenor. But if you were to sing a piece of music and only sing the tenor part, it would not be a good piece of music. Yeah. It really takes the basses and the sopranos and the altos to make a good piece of music. Unless, of course, it's an all-men's ensemble, but that's different. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
And sometimes the notes may clash, but that doesn't mean they don't work together.
Yeah.
So that's always been something that I've tried to incorporate into my perspective when it comes to policymaking.
Well, I've had a few conversations with you. I'm glad you mentioned music, because you and I share a love of a certain type of music. We could probably spend another podcast on that. But here's what I would say, Representative. Let's let it sit with your metaphor of music, because I think it's a really good one. And I really appreciate your perspective on things, and I really appreciate the way you're approaching the session and the way you approach your job as a representative. And I just appreciate the work you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.